How's it going, everyone? I am up here at my family's cabin in the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains, and I'm spending the week up here because I am planning a year's worth of sermons in 1 week. So I thought I would kind of share with you guys how I do that, and maybe that's something you'll find helpful too. All right, so if you want to try and plan all of your sermons for the year in 1 week, you need 4 basic things. You need time, you need a place, you need the right tools, and you need some kind of a process to follow. So for the time, you want to carve out this time, this week of sermon planning, way in advance. You need at least 4 or 5 whole days to work on this, not including travel time. And you want to make sure that your church knows that you're going to be doing this and what it's for. Make sure they know it's not vacation, it's not study leave, this is work. You're going to be planning your sermons, which is part of your job. And so you're going to carve out this time way in advance to be away from the church so you can focus on planning sermons for the year. When you go to a new church, you might want to make this part of your terms or your arrangement with the church board or session or whatever structure you have so that they know this is built in to your year and they know what to expect. Now, if you're already at a church, you might find yourself having to do a little bit of convincing about why this change is a good thing. And what you can tell them is that, first of all, taking a whole week to plan all of your sermons is going to make you more efficient with your time throughout the year. You're not going to have to cram in that sermon planning. You're just going to be able to focus on writing the actual sermons and doing all the other things that you need to do. So it's going to make you more efficient with your time throughout the year. The second benefit is that it's going to be way more organized for your staff and your volunteers. You're going to come out of this week with a spreadsheet for the entire year that your staff and volunteers can look at and plan ahead for, and they will love you for it. So it's going to make them happy on the administrative end as well. And the third benefit is that you're going to preach better sermons. Again, when you don't have to spend time during the week thinking about what to preach on, that's already been decided, you can just focus on how to preach it. And so your sermons are going to be noticeably better if you already have the entire year planned out. So if you need to convince someone at your church, you can just tell them it's going to make you more efficient with your time, more organized for your staff and volunteers, and you're going to be preaching better sermons. So the next thing you need is to choose a good place. And you want a place that's going to give you solitude and serenity. A place where you can be alone and relatively free from distractions. Now, it probably goes without saying, but that should not be your church. It shouldn't even be the town that you live in. It needs to be someplace where you can truly get out and be as alone as possible, in a place that you find peaceful and restorative. So it can be in mountains like it is for me. It can be the beach. It could just be kind of out in the country, someplace that you can go where you can have solitude and serenity. So there was this big fire last summer, actually almost exactly a year ago, last Labor Day weekend. It was the creek fire, and it burned super close to our cabin. You can see that the cabin is right over there, and then right down here you've got where some of the burned bushes are, and you can see just how close the fire came. And it actually burned, unfortunately, it burned the cabin just up the hill. It's no longer there, only about 30 or 40 yards away. So it came really close. We were actually up here last year and we got evacuated, and thankfully everybody was okay, but yeah, it's just kind of crazy. And again, you can see on this backside, here's the cabin. And you look over here and these trees right next to the cabin are green. Everything behind it is all brown and burnt. And all these trees back on the hill, back behind, everything is burnt. Just thousands and thousands and thousands of acres all burnt. So it's sad to see. Grateful that our cabin is still here and that I can still use it for sermon prep. But crazy stuff. All right, the next thing you need to bring with you are the right tools. Obviously, you need to bring at least one Bible. I mean, that's your main tool, but you might want to bring a couple of different versions or a favorite study Bible. You also want to bring a calendar so that you can look at the year and you know when the different Sundays are. And especially if your church is more liturgically minded, then you want a calendar that's going to show you Advent and Lent and Ash Wednesday, Pentecost Sunday, and things like that so that you know when those fall and you can plan your sermons accordingly. And speaking of calendar, you also want to go into it with some sense of when you're going to be taking vacation during the year. You don't have to have all of it planned out, but you want to have a rough idea of when you're going to be gone so that you know when to build that into your sermon planning, so you don't end up creating this awesome sermon series you're looking forward to doing, and then you end up discovering, oh, that's the only day we can do vacation. And so now there's this day in the middle of your sermon series where you're going to be gone and you have to find someone else to preach it and try to explain to them what the sermon series is about, and it's just not going to be quite the same. So as much as you can, go into it knowing when your vacation is going to be. Also bring with you any reference materials that you're going to want to use to help you study and plan your sermons. So whether that's a commentary, either a whole set or preferably a condensed single commentary or a Bible dictionary or whatever software you might have. You don't need to bring everything with you because, again, you're going to do the in-depth study during the year when you're actually writing the sermons. You don't need to do all of that during this week, but you do want a few reference materials to help you kind of fill out the main idea for each sermon that you're going to plan. So those are the tools you need to actually plan the sermons, but you should also bring with you any stuff you need for restorative activities. So whether it's hiking or fishing or cycling, you're not going to spend every waking moment working on this. You need to take breaks. You need to get out and do things that are going to be restorative for you. So make sure you bring whatever gear that you need to help you do those things during the week as well. All right, so the next thing you need is a process, and you're going to structure your time during the week around that process. So I'll share my process with you, and then you can tweak it however you want. First thing I do is break the year up into chunks of time. So I put the whole year into a spreadsheet, and I break the year up into 6 chunks of time, starting with the season of Advent, which is the beginning of the liturgical year. So first there's Advent with those 4 Sundays, plus any other special services that your church might have. Then after that comes winter, which is a different length every year because Easter moves around every year. And the winter chunk of Sundays goes up until Lent begins. Then you have the 6 Sundays of Lent, and I usually include Easter in that series as well, plus any other special services. Then after Lent and Easter, you've got the spring, and I typically take that all the way up until Pentecost. And I include Pentecost Sunday, which is usually the end of May or the beginning of June, which is right around when school gets out anyway, so it kind of fits with the academic year. Then you've got the big chunk of Sundays in the summer, and then another pretty big chunk of Sundays in the fall. And I usually start the fall after Labor Day weekend, when our church does our fall kickoff, and I take that right up until the beginning of the next Advent. The next thing you want to do is brainstorm. Get your journal out, take some notes, write down sermon series ideas, books of the Bible, topics you want to go through, anything. You're just brainstorming what kind of series you want to do. And I typically start with Advent and Lent, and I try to brainstorm a series that's really going to focus on a very small passage of scripture or a specific story, something where I can really dive in and dig deep into a specific passage of scripture and really unpack it fully. That's a lot of fun to do. Then for winter, spring, and fall, I look at books of the Bible or topics where I might want a few more Sundays to kind of fill them out. And then for summer, what I try to do is something flexible. So I often just use the lectionary or do something like a summer in the Psalms. And the reason is because I take a lot of my vacation in the summer and I'm gone a lot. And so I want it to be easy for someone to come in and preach in my place without feeling all this pressure to fit in with this series idea that I've got in my head. So there's a theme to it, like the lectionary or the Psalms or something like that, but it's really easy for people to come in and fill in here and there while I'm gone. All right, so after you've brainstormed, then you really want to pick the series that you're most excited about. You want to try and give those series a title, and you're going to fill in the actual scripture passages you're going to use for each Sunday. That takes a lot of time, but you want to really get those passages nailed down, chapter and verse, so that every Sunday you know what scriptures you're working with. Then once you've got the series titles and the scriptures, you're going to fill it out even more and work on the sermon titles for each Sunday. and try to identify any other scripture texts that will reinforce the main sermon topic or the main scripture. So like in our church, we read 2 scriptures on a Sunday morning. So I'll find what that second scripture is going to be for each Sunday. Then the last step is, beside each Sunday, after I've picked the scripture and the title and all of that, is I try to write a single sentence focus statement for that sermon. Again, that takes a lot of time as well, but it really makes things easier later during the year if you've already got that planned out. All right, so that's how to plan a year's worth of sermons in 1 week. I hope you find this helpful. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you've done anything like this before, or if you use a different process. I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, hope you have a great week. Peace.